is a coaching decision. Leadership creates culture. So that leader, that coach will create an environment that either promotes prima donnas and divas and entitlement and that, like, to me, that is actually the opposite of athlete-centered. Athlete-centered means I have you by the heart and the head, and you are going beyond what you ever thought you could do because you're in my program. The last thing you are is entitled. You're actually exposing yourself. You're vulnerable. 2 out of 3 times you get it right, but 1 out of 3 times you fail. You get dirty. You are down in the muck, and that's where you should be, because that's where you learn. Sport gives us an opportunity to do that nothing else in the world gives us, right? Physically and mentally and spiritually, you fall down when you learn in sport. So I actually think that an athlete-centered program looks like the polar opposite of an entitled person, who has everything they want.
Okay, right. So the next question is around what challenging sport looks and feels like. But I'm wondering if you can blend that with this previous question and maybe give some examples. So if a coach was saying, like, what could I do to create that athlete-centered environment that I might not be doing right now?
Mm-hmm. Coaches need to ask a lot of questions to discover the challenge zone for each person in the program. And that is difficult, but really exciting. If I could give one piece of advice to every coach that I've never met, it would be to work on their use of open-ended questions. And that will give them insight into what's going on with their participants so that they can challenge them appropriately. Because what feels like a challenge to me probably doesn't feel like a challenge to you. And then multiply that by how many kids you have in your program or adults you have in your program. I mean, it's unbelievable what we ask of coaches, and my heart is with the coach every time. And that's why I'm a coach developer, because I see that potential, because they will create an environment where magic will happen if they get this right. I forget your question.
Can you talk more about the challenge zone?
Yeah. I gotta think about it for a minute.
And some examples maybe.
Yes. Yeah. When we see athletes operating in their challenge zone, they are doing things that they will succeed at 2 times out of every 3 trials. So, for example, in the sport behind us right now, synchronized swimming, an athlete learning a new skill no, that's a bad answer. I gotta think of an example.
Okay.
Just give me a minute. For me, I have to use a story of me being an athlete to describe the challenge zone to you. Those are really our story is our own. And I feel like I grew up in the challenge zone. So at times I felt unworthy of the people I was surrounded by, and I grew up in a situation where everybody who was older than me was somehow a champion. Whether they were a champion because they were on the podium, or they were a champion because I simply thought they were amazing women. There was this sense of unworthiness that I had, actually, that challenged me. But I felt as if I belonged in the environment. So I know that sounds like a dichotomy, and it kind of is. And I think we have to better understand what will it take to create a club or a program where people feel like they belong, but they also feel like they could always be better. And that is actually how I grew up. From the age of 9 to 24, and I hope you believe me, I was in the challenge zone. And so there were moments of genius where I knew I nailed it, but that was rare. Most of the time I was wondering how I could be better. And I could look around and see it and have this glimmer of maybe I can be it. That is how I grew up. And that was created by coaches, right? And those coaches actually, through supporting us, earned the right to challenge us. I don't think you can walk into any sport, doesn't matter what the sport, and just start challenging people. You have to earn the right to challenge people through supporting them first. So it's love first, challenge second, every time.
So what do you say, or what advice would you give to those coaches who go to the X's and O's, to the technical piece, and that's their kind of bread and butter, their way of coaching, and they don't or haven't thought about or developed that skill of earning the trust or the whole psychosocial part of coaching? How do we kind of flip that a little bit?
I would say to a coach who believes the technical and tactical are more important than the mental, physical, and spiritual connection, that they are missing an opportunity to develop a person's full potential and even change their potential, and that they have no idea the power of starting with the person and adding on the sport.
So we have questions around the observable metrics of a well-run program and the behind-the-scenes components of a well-run program, but maybe you could relate that to your transition from an athlete to a coach, and how did you create that environment, or what challenges did you see in creating that environment for your athletes?
Before you answer that,